right. I've had some problems with them. Are you all right? Yeah, great, lovely.
I'm fine. Just so you know, it's recording just now. So
Okay.
Right.
just so you know. So where's your other half?
He's not going to attend this one, Alyson,
Right,
because
okay.
he says he's not really not really into the reptilians. I'm not a knowledge on them, but I've come up with the past life regression called Kulkum, which we can talk about. And Frank's incident he had that occurred, which was quite
Definitely.
horrific. Yes,
Definitely,
so it
yeah.
would make interesting. Everything reptilians always more or less covered, isn't it? Or snubbed away. Have you noticed that? I typed in today. I had looked on YouTube. I think I typed in reptilians or something, but then they come up with all the conspiracy theorist stuff. You know, like I saw one on there with a murderer who'd bombed some people, and they found some letters from or the CIA or something where he would mention the reptilians, but they called it conspiracy theory. So
yeah.
The minute you just mention it, they label it with a conspiracy theory.
Yeah, that's right.
It makes me laugh. Does that mean the Bible's a conspiracy theory?
That's right.
Well, that's a whole other show. But this is the first of 4 interviews through the month of August. I don't know if I said this to you. That's going to include the artwork of guests. So hence the more visual format for these shows. So today we've got returning guest, Kung Fu master and spiritual healer Frank Willis, and we've got Ronnie Kinsella. You've been on with your. I hope this is Ronnie, isn't it? Yeah.
It is, yes. Yeah. It's not His Majesty Philip.
I only know because they were calling each other.
I don't know about you, Frank, but I still get confused.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll probably know you for years and still get confused, so my apologies. But a very warm welcome to you both. So today, as you said, we're talking about the subject of reptilians, and these are lots of different things have been claimed about reptilians, that they shapeshift into human form to gain political control of Earth. I would have no trouble believing that Boris Johnson was a snake. Discuss, but so I'll start by asking. I'll just get right in there, Frank, and ask, what was your experience of reptilians?
Right. I first heard about them through, the UFO community, and I just dismissed it as, for much of a better word, bullshit. And anyway, moving along about 6 months from when they were first mentioned to me, I had a group round at my house, and we were training about 12 people how to heal, and we were doing a deep meditation. Anyway, one guy who'd only been about 4 times, he came along, and when I was looking around to see how people were meditating, I do see auras, and I was looking at their auras, making sure they were doing it right. And this guy shapeshifted into a reptilian, a green one. I looked at it, I rubbed my eyes, I'm thinking, what am I seeing? I thought, God, I must have taken too many drugs when I was younger. And I was thinking all sorts, trying to dismiss it, trying to think, am I going insane? And then all of a sudden I got this overwhelming feeling that it was trying to threaten me and put me in fear. At which point I just thought, it's my house, get out. And it kind of shape-shifted back to this guy. Anyway, when the group went, one of the women, she asked if she could stay behind and talk to me. So we did, I made her a cup of tea, and I said, right, what's wrong? She said, well, the same guy she'd been having an affair with, and the other night, as she said, he was making love to me. I opened my eyes because he was getting a bit rough, and there's this reptilian on top of me. So it confirmed what I was seeing, and wow, did it open up the doors for me, and trying to research it and everything. And,
Goodness.
since then, I have seen two more. One was in a guy's aura, and this was in Wales about 10 years ago. They were a freeman of the land meeting, and this guy was taking centre stage, and one of the mates asked me to have a look. And as you saw, this reptilian stood behind him, more or less controlling what he was saying. I told my friend, and my friend just went, "That confirms it. I saw it too." So I was like, "Wow, you really saw him?" He said, "I didn't see him, but I saw it stood in his aura." And I went, "I didn't know you could see auras." He said, "I can't, but that day I saw it plain as day." Anyway, the third one was a politician, and she came to Preston, and it was just a fleeting glance. She walked past me, and she kind of turned, looked at me, shape-shifted to a reptilian, and I just rubbed my eyes and thought, I'm seeing things. But that was the third one I saw. So
Oh, goodness.
that's my experience of them.
Yeah, so you're seeing these things visibly sometimes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
It went with the third eye, weren't a psychic thing.
Okay.
It was real as plain day.
And so when they say they saw it, or you saw it in their auras,
Yeah.
do they just mean like with their third eye in their...
No, I actually see auras with my own eyes.
Right, but when you see the reptilian in someone's aura, what does that mean?
It means they're controlling that person.
Okay.
I mean, the research I've done, I get the impression reptilians feed off humans. I know they actually eat humans, but they like to feed off us psychically. They like to put us in a state of fear, and they feed from that fear.
Okay. Yeah, I have heard that, and that's quite similar to the idea of demons feeding on fear as well.
Yeah.
Are these two things related?
I believe so. The archetypal devil, the horns and the tail, is that a reptilian and somebody's interpreted it as that? Or, I mean, I know Satan, Lucifer, whatever you want to call him, is pure evil, but not all reptilians are evil. Some are benevolent, but the archetypal looks like a reptilian. And going back to what I was saying before about the Bible, in the book of Genesis, the devil talked to Eve and tempted her, and then God punished the devil and made him slide on his belly for eternity, which, if he had arms and legs, is he a reptilian?
Yeah. It's still a reptile.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Ronnie, I'm going to bring you in at this point. What is your experience of reptilians?
I've never seen one physically, and I agree with Frank on what he states, what he mentioned, certainly about the biblical account, which would make sense, and also considering the demonic aspect of them as well, which I have done as well. It would be foolish not to. But the experience I had was quite interesting because about 24 years ago, or 25 years ago, I can't remember exactly, I was asked to go under for past life regression. What it was, a medium had seen me. I'd asked to see her and she agreed. This is a medium who wouldn't have anyone for financial advice or love, but she agreed to see me, and I went to see her, paid her £20. She kept me there for 2 hours. She saw Philip and I's sisters on Atlantis. She brought enough proof through to confirm for me, because I was skeptical, that she was incredible. So we agreed. I was intrigued. Reincarnation. We were sisters on Atlantis, something called a golden era. So she came over. In a nutshell, she did past life regression, and I had 4. I saw 4. 3 were all death. But the 4th one was interesting because I had no interest in history. I was bone idle at school, lazy, and I wasn't interested in any of it. But what I saw was like a jungle. I was a native of this tribe, which I will now say, which I worked out was possibly Mayan, the Mayan civilization. There was a girl sitting beside me, dark hair, both dark hair, tanned. That was Philip, my sister. And what caught my eye was something drifting from the sky. It was dropping down. And it was what we would call a spaceship. Now, this thing looked like a squat spider. It wasn't a spider, but it had took the form of it. It was silver. There was no sound. I couldn't hear anything, but it ran like a film. These reincarnations ran like a film. And then I was compelled to look at my left wrist, and I was wearing a golden disc. Now, I knew this golden disc, it's like a wristwatch, but the disc was the size of a tea saucer. But I knew this was associated with them, the arrivals. Okay. And then, not knowing where this was going, I had a flash of something. It was obviously their faces, only the heads, reptilian, dinosaurs. Now, it ended, but then I recorded. I even drew pictures. Being an artist, I drew all this down and recorded it for later on. I mean, much later, I wrote a book on it. The first one was in 2012, which I did illustrate them. It's a good job I did keep them, because before that, I would have lost interest in it had my mum not gone to Chichen Itza, which I'd never heard of, and she bought photographs back. And when I looked at these photographs, I wouldn't say it was an immediate connection with it. I wouldn't know, but there was their kind of familiarity with the trees and the buildings. Not all of them. They just looked to me, they seemed to spark something. And when she took pictures of what they worshipped, I became very interested. It was the reptilians. Wow. And she showed me the temple of El Castilla, the one with the staircase in Chichen Itza, where, that's right, the serpents run down, and at the 2 equinoxes, I believe, in a year, it gives an illusion, a light show of snakes slipping down the staircase. I was very interested. I found out this was Kukulkan. Now, is it possible I had seen Kukulkan or Kukulkan? I pronounce it Kukulkan, it's simpler. Because I don't believe, I know we build churches to worship Jesus Christ, and all the religious people resurrect temples in honor of their gods, but these just seem to be a step too far. The technology of knowing where the light is to hit. When you clap at certain buildings, it resonates a number of times. And also the feathered serpent. Now, looking into him, I found out his name, as we said, not Kozikolti. He's more elusive, I think, but it was Kolkukan, I'm sure, the feathered serpent. I then worked out that they might have had an ancient visitor, and that was him, Kolkukan. And the feathered serpent, well, I only saw the neck up. I only saw the head. I didn't see any feathers. It could well be symbolic. I started to realize that could it mean that the serpent can fly?
Oh.
So this is what got me. I can't afford to go there at the moment. I would love to go to Chichen Itza. I need to go there because I want to research this further. But as Frank has stated, they are very much real. And of course, the directors of antiquity there would absolutely vehemently deny that they had visitors from outer space, reptilians or interdimensional, whatever they were, you know, but I believe they did. And I believe he was real as corporal.
So you have some amazing artwork of these reptilians. Can you show us any?
I can post them to you.
Okay.
If that's all right. I don't know how to do it. I'm not that clever on the. I'm sorry. I'm not really clever with it. But I can certainly post them to you to include.
Just lift them up and show them.
I have got one. Let me get it. This is for Frank.
Okay.
Now, this is not Kukulkan. This is Frank. This is something similar to what Frank.
Wow.
But Frank said that the reptilian he saw didn't have horns, did it?
That's right, yeah.
And the teeth weren't exposed, but he said more or less that's what they look like. This isn't Kukulkan. I call him that on the thing, but to try to replicate that is very difficult, trying to remember exactly what. They were dinosaurian.
Yeah. So
the posh word for it, dinosaurian, I'll use, like basically a dinosaur.
Yeah, yeah. That's lovely. That's well, it's I was going to say it's beautiful, and it's lovely, but
It's lovely.
I don't know if I could go as far as to say that, but it's very beautifully done.
Yes, I
I
know
think.
what you mean. I
You
know what you
know,
mean. I know what you mean.
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's interesting though that Frank mentioned in a circle of type that people saw these beings in in someone's aura. I was at a circle once. Now this reptilians, I have to say, is quite outside of my comfort zone, and as is doing something like in video, but I was at a circle on one occasion, and there was a man in that circle, and as he was speaking, I just saw, it was like a flash of a reptile, and he said something, I can't remember what it was he said, and I joked with him, "Oh, you're one of these reptilians then?" And I just called him out on it. So, and he looked at me and he said, "You're not the only person that said that."
Mm, yeah.
And he said that he felt as though he had something on his back. Now, afterwards, I said to my husband, Ian, who's a psychic medium, who on that occasion was running the class, and this was before we got together, and I said to him, if ever there was a psychic vampire, that's one. Because immediately I just felt this, now whether it was from the guy or whether it was from something that was with him, I really don't know, but if ever there was a psychic vampire, he just had that. He had that about him. Yeah. And I ended up not going back to the class. It just, I don't know, it just shook me somehow. And yeah. I'm not easily shaken, but it really did affect me to meet that guy. Yeah.
It's pretty mind-blowing, isn't it? Like you say, it's out of your comfort zone. It was well out of mine as well.
Yeah.
You know, to this day, I still question it. Did I actually see it? And the answer is, yeah, I did. Mm-hmm. You know, but I'm still questioning my own sanity with it. You know, that's how far mind-blowing it is. Because you know, we're brought up in this world, and everything seems to be black and white in this world. Mm-hmm. And the minute something paranormal or weird happens, you question it. Yeah. And the first thing you do is you question your own sanity.
Yeah, absolutely. You do. There's early fictional narratives, and I just wonder, I don't have any of them actually, the names of them written down, but you just wonder, has that got into our subconscious mind or our unconscious mind? I know psychologists don't like the term subconscious. Or did the people who wrote those stories, did they experience this for themselves and so put it down in writing?
Yeah.
And the reason that I say it that way is I know that there was a spike in UFO sightings during the 90s when the X-Files come on TV.
Yeah.
And it just seems that there is a spike in what we see when something is brought to our attention.
Yeah.
I don't know what you both think of that.
It's a lot of people do, and you are right. You know, I remember in the 60s, a lot of people were seeing this light flying over the sky really fast. But everybody was saying, "Oh, you're all nuts." Even the government were saying they're nuts. So it becomes like a grey area to like talk about. And yeah, you are right. You know, we like question it. A lot of people don't mention it for fear of being ridiculed. But because I've mentioned it, a lot of people come out the woodwork and tell me. But yeah, a lot of people since I've been, talking about it, come to me and tell me stuff, and I think, are they actually making it up to kind of look good or to be part of something? And I found quite a lot of people in the UFO community who are like that. I'm not denying that they saw something. Maybe they haven't, but there are that element that do make things up to try and justify their own existence or make themselves look good.
Yeah.
There's also a possibility as well that this force or whatever it is hones in on fads. Is it possible that, it's so smart, it knows the spikes, so it will blast even more of itself upon people, hidden or curtained behind this mask of deceit? It's so clever, it's very advanced, I think, and Frank is absolutely right in stating that, there's the trouble with this topic is that you have the good, the bad, and the ugly. The people who are honest, who want to know what it is. We don't, but it's good to speculate. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. You've got all these pieces all over the place, and you're trying to put it piece by piece together. And you get someone coming along, they jumble it all up, with the lies and the elaborations, and you're back to square one. I just said to Frank today, no matter how hard people dig, and I'm a casual researcher, but you work and work, and it's ironic. At the end of it all, you come round to a blank page. And is this what this force, or whatever they are, smart enough in doing? Because they're like shadows. You can't catch them. You just can't catch them. Yeah, they're smart. These greys that people talk about, they hide. And they mix up your mind, and they conceal themselves. Why? Why would they do that? This is not good. I'm sick and tired. I think Frank would agree with me that people harping on about them being world peace and wishing to bestow goodness upon the earth. There's no evidence of it. We could argue also there's no evidence of the snatchings, but there is. Because of people's testimony. It's a narrative that the media wants to follow that keeps dousing it. But the truthful picture at the moment is it's quite negative. We don't know why. The reptilians, as Frank has mentioned, they hide. I want to ask Frank, do you think yourself that when you saw these reptilians, do you wonder if the person was conscious of it being part of them, or
the first one? I don't think he was.
No,
but I have met people who have said such a body's a reptilian, and
yes,
they are aware of it. I found that kind of person is high up in management, or they're in a position of power.
Right.
Going back to what you said before, Alyson, about Boris, I don't think he is a reptilian, but he's controlled by them. Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I think probably every Tory in common is controlled by reptilians, but that's another show. Well, you said there, Ronnie, there's evidence of people being snatched by reptilians.
Well, I would say more, as I mentioned, the greys. I think from what I've learned, that the reptilians are the overlords. What I've learned from other people's testimony, I wouldn't know this. It's just what I found out is that they puppeteer these people. They're obviously the elite. I trust my instincts. I'm going to say I wouldn't be at all surprised if they were the true masters, and they were above the Illuminati. We give it a name, Illuminati, with the Rothschild and the Rockefellers and all that, who then the power, and this has been written about, David Icke mentioned this as well, drops down to the people and then to the lower forms. I won't be at all surprised. What I did mention is I don't think there's many of them.
Mhm.
So this is possibly a weakness on their part. So they need people, as Frank rightly said, they require people to act as their agents. They know how to play the game. They know that the facts can be distorted all the time, every time. We go back to the media. Every single time a blasted UFO subject is raised, it's designed to be taboo and it's ridiculed. And they love it. They love it because it's working in their favor. Or if it's considered conspiracy, they love it even more because the facts can't ever be relayed. When I say there's proof of people being taken, the proof is their testimony. They're good, honest people. We know.
Mhm.
So I trust them more than I would trust any politician or high-ranking power.
Yeah. Interesting you say about manipulation of facts, because the man that I spoke to had a habit of manipulating facts, and as soon as he did that with me, that was it. I drew our communication to a close, walked away. Yeah, they're very, very devious in that respect.
The one thing they like to do is portray where they are and what they are and where they are. And a good example of that, I remember when I first got into this, one of my friends said, "Reptilians, you having a laugh?" And I went, "Hang on, you are English." And he went, "Yeah, what's that got to do?" I went, "What did St. George slay?" And he went, "What's that got to do with it?" I went, "What, he's a dragon?" And he went, "Right, yeah, I bet shut up, huh?" But it's there right in my face, St. George and the dragon.
Yeah.
But
are these not just, they're myths representative of something like someone slaying or overcoming, defeating perhaps a king or a habit of some kind?
it's definitely symbology of something, isn't it?
Yeah, but
Right.
Of what is the question?
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, it's like you could say the Bible's mythology. In fact, all of history is mythology.
Yeah.
We can't, I mean, we have archaeologists who are very clever, and I will give them it, they're very clever, but they don't know all the facts.
No.
But when they publish or broadcast documents based on their findings and how these people lived and who they interacted with, we trust that, but they don't know. So it's a myth. So what can we trust? You know? So when people laugh at details of possible reptilians, the overlords running the world, and people are screaming with laughter, they won't know. Just as we won't know about Kukulkan, but you could bet your bottom dollar that the people who unearthed all that, Chichen Itza, will completely vehemently deny it because it doesn't follow their narrative.
Yeah. The other thing with the symbology, on the Vatican coat of arms, there's dragons. Again, it's why.
Do you know, I was going to ask later if now we hear about reptilians being associated with governments.
Yeah.
But what about the church? Are they associated with the church? And you've just sort of answered that question. But I don't know if there's more to it than that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know anything on that subject either of you.
I don't, but I look towards the Chinese, you know, obviously we're doing Chinese martial arts. What they call the dragon lines, you know, they call their lines dragon lines, and they base the art of feng shui around it. You know, they build their houses around this energy flow, but they call it a dragon. And I can't make the link why they call it a dragon, other than it is a line of energy, and a dragon is like a long line of energy.
Yeah.
Sometimes they portray them as fire breathing. And is the fire breathing dragon representative of a UFO taking off and its exhaust or a rocket? You know, we don't know. But somebody somewhere has interpreted something they've experienced or seen.
Yeah.
And that interpretation comes out. You know, like in the Bible, there's hundreds of UFO incidences, but they'll say, well, we were following, I think it was it Moses who wandered the desert for 40 years.
Um,
I'm sure it was him who said they were following a flying scroll, which
mm,
in today's terms is a long cigar-shaped UFO.
yeah.
You know, you got to think how they thought or how they would interpret something.
Yeah, how they would interpret it. Uh-huh.
So if they're experiencing the ley line and the energy, and they call it a dragon, it's like, why? Where's that born from?
Yes.
But it's the same all around the world.
Yeah.
You know,
I was reading. I was doing a bit of research into all this, and one of the symbols was the. I hope I pronounce this properly. The Ouroboros.
yeah,
Yeah. And it's a symbol that appears the world over.
yeah,
The serpent eating its own tail.
yeah,
And in Norse mythology, if the serpent ever takes the tail out of its mouth, that spells the end for mankind
yeah.
and womankind as well. So that's an interesting thing that the world over, serpents are or reptiles are important things.
Do you remember the old symbol for British Telecom? The guy with a trumpet.
I don't remember.
It was like a stick figure, but he was holding up a trumpet and blowing it.
Right.
If you look down the main part of it, it's a snake with its mouth open. It's as plain as day when you see it.
Yeah, they're everywhere. We really are quite obsessed with the idea of reptiles.
Yeah,
It goes back to the demons. I mean, the biblical. We go back to the biblical ways of, as Frank mentioned, Lucifer. Was that possible? You know, has it been distorted as the Moses with was it Moses with the flying scroll?
yeah,
Moses with the flying scroll. Well, they may have interpreted Lucifer and the demons, referring to them. What they've basically done is they fashion them into a religious sense. When you say demon, we automatically think of fire, or we think of winged beasts with teeth. Whereas these might have been very real. They might have been the reptilians, fallen angels. They may have been describing a race of creatures that did wage war, not necessarily in heaven. Perhaps anything above us or ethereal would, to them, the people of the past, be considered to be heaven. Were they talking about a battle of reptilians? And when they fell to earth, they were basically
the fallen angels.
Yes, that's right. They were belted out of their clan and left here. We don't know. This is very interesting about that. We fashioned them. Certainly, the Vatican has. I mean, I think they know more about them than they're letting on.
Yeah.
There certainly are. With their telescopes, even called Lucifer. They have a telescope. Their astronomy is called Lucifer. So there is some. Yeah. So there's reference.
Somebody has a wicked sense of humour there, I think.
I think they're wiser to this darker force than they're letting on. To us, it's a Sunday school version, it's very loose, isn't it? Lucifer was cast out for treason against the one, and he was kicked out with his followers, the fallen angels, and cast into hell. Could hell be interdimensional? Could they have been talking about an interdimensional prison? Well, we don't know, and they found a way of breaking out, and this is what they are. These survivors of this ancient dragon bloodline that are they've raised their ugly heads to control and manipulate. People keep saying, why are they hateful? Well, not being funny, but look at the human race. We're not saints. We could be quite ugly. I'm not tainting all with the same brush, you understand, but certainly not the leaders. I mean, it goes on, doesn't it?
And are you saying then that they are more of a psychic? We would see them psychically because they're in some other dimension?
I think there's different races of reptilians.
Right.
And some are interdimensional, some are flesh and blood like us.
Right.
Yeah.
and some, will travel time and space,
Mhm.
but they do it in an instant.
Yeah.
I was told a long time ago by a Native American. His name was Alphas Lunder. He was from the Umpapa Sioux Nation, and he was a medicine man, and he revealed quite a lot of the Sioux religion and what they believed in. And they have bands of warriors what go out at night hunting reptilians and killing them.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
Now,
they know them as like aliens, or
yeah,
they
they,
do, right?
they call them aliens, but they believe they live underground. So the ones they're hunting are flesh and blood ones.
Okay, yeah, well, that was actually going to bring me to something else, the hollow earth idea that these that reptilians might live in the earth,
Yeah.
like the
The-
Doctor Who.
Yeah.
What were they called again? Was it the Silurians, or
Something like that, I think.
I should know. I'm a Doctor Who fan. I should have looked it up before I come on, but
I
yeah.
can't remember that.
the Zulu nation, they do the same as the Sioux nation. They go hunting them as well, but they call them Chitahuri, which when I go back to being a child growing up in Rhodesia and South Africa, we used to chase the nanny with chameleons. They're terrified of them, and I could never figure out why, but it's the reptilian shapeshifter,
Uh-huh.
and that's what they're scared of.
That reminds me of a lesson that I did in Greece when I was teaching English as a foreign language, and I had children in my class, and one of the little girls had a lizard. Now, it wasn't a chameleon. Oh gosh, what's the big lizards that
Kimono,
oh gee.
iguana.
I don't think it was a chameleon. Anyway, she had this big lizard that was her pet. Iguana. It was an iguana. It was huge, this thing. And she was chasing any child that she thought was scared, she was chasing it round and making them even more scared. And I uttered the words that I never thought I would utter. Give me the lizard. And I put the lizard on my arm, up to my shoulder, and I gave this lesson with the whole hour with this lizard on my shoulder.
You're cozying up to them.
I was cozying up to them, yeah.
But you see, it's like when we were saying about there's no proof. Of course there won't be proof, because even Graham Hancock, the pyramids, you see what trouble he's got into. They call him a pseudoscientist, which is wicked. And yet he's a brilliant researcher. You know, anything that does not conform to their way of thinking is rubbish or poo-poo. And they as Frank knows, that they have a way of making you look absolutely ridiculous. But don't you see, that's the whole point of it. I'll give an example. There's a film that I've never seen before called The Terror. I don't know if you've seen it, based on an archaeological trip that two ships made in the 1850s. And the trip was, they were the most technologically advanced ships of their time. They actually had central heating. I think the Erebus and the Terror, the two ships that went to the Arctic, they were stranded. Now they were killed off. Yeah, they were killed off by something. It wasn't a bear. Apparently it was something very supernatural. It was massive. Now, why weren't we taught that? This is history, and we did history of even the 1800s. Why weren't we told about that? I didn't know anything about it until I think it was Ridley Scott made the film. Didn't know anything about the Terror.
I've not seen the film. I've seen the TV programme that was on, I think it was on the BBC not that long ago.
That might have been it, the series. Yes, the mini-series.
series,
That's right, the mini-series.
with the guy who played Julius Caesar, whose name I can't remember.
Yes,
in,
I think I know
Rome.
the one. I can't remember his name.
And he
But-
was also in Game of Thrones. I can't remember his name now, but he played the
One of the
captain.
captains.
Yeah,
yes.
one of the captains. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was very good, and I remember remarking at the time as well that I've never heard of this.
No,
Why have I never heard of this?
no, and it's like what other gems are kept from us?
Yeah.
You see, this is what they're not teaching at school, and of course they won't, especially about the UFOs or the Greys. They would never dare to mention them. So of course we're just left scratching for bits and pieces and trying to find testimony from others, the good people who have recorded it in journals, or like the demons that the Vatican know more about. How do we know about them, you see? There must be some truth to them. The symbology of the dragon, as Frank said, there's got to be some truth behind that.
And you go to India and they believe in the Nagas. The snake people.
What are they? Ah, right, okay.
Nagas. An interesting thing, mixing archaeology with myth. In the myth, certainly in the Mahabharata scriptures of the Hindus, you talk about a war in the heavens between the gods, and one of the gods was Shiva. Now Shiva lived in a town called Dwarka, and just I think it was in the 60s, they discovered Dwarka out at sea under the sea. So the actual town Dwarka where Shiva lived is real. So was Shiva real? And did Shiva actually fly around in a Vimana or a flying machine?
Yes. The destroyer of worlds.
And
They symbolize her, don't they?
Yeah.
The Hadron Collider.
yeah,
Oh yeah, I think that's
Natural time.
scary. Yeah.
Destroyer of worlds. Yes, very good point, Frank. Very
the
good
destroyer
point.
of worlds.
Yes.
Yeah.
They reckon the symbol is because she's reshaping it, which comes after. But basically it means the destroyer of worlds. And onto that topic, you just reminded me, Frank, the symbology of Sir. Now, this is not my discovery. Someone else made this. Is actually 666.
Yeah.
Was Mark of the Beast. And I reckon with that color, where I had a lady, she read an extract of something I'd written, and she wanted to challenge me on it because apparently her father, I think, worked there or was a pioneer. And she said that I think she was all right afterwards because I said, because I don't believe they're just looking to find the glue that binds us together, God, the God particle. That's what they're looking for. But I think they're looking for other things as well. I wonder if they've discovered they can weekly open up dimensions, because now, as you know, they want to build a bigger one. Yeah. So what's that for? It's more steam, isn't it? Basically, in a nutshell, more steam, more power.
Yeah.
But this woman contested me on it, and I said, well, look at NASA. Let's look at that. There were pioneers who created NASA, but they're not going to tell you all the truths, are they? Because it is actually a covert institution. You know, I can't trust them no more than I can trust NASA. And the ironic thing is, it's never a straight answer, isn't it? Because it's quite true. You have people in there, and this is with NASA, who actually report that they've had people airbrushing anomalies out of photographs of the moon, so that they conform to our preferred narrative. You see. So where does it end? It goes on, and of course they'll deny it, they'll lie, and it just goes on and on.
Mm-hmm. Do you think you mentioned, Frank, about benevolent reptilians? What? Yeah. Ronnie's cringing there. No, there aren't any. Frank, what do we know of the small percentage that are benevolent?
Yeah. From talking to people, some people have actually met them, seen them, communicated with them, so I'm only going by what they say. But they said that there are a race of reptilians which are trying to help mankind fight against the others, because it is basically good against evil. And I also know that with alien beings like the Greys who are abducting us are doing what they're doing. But then the Sioux Indians call a similar being, Eban, which is blue in colour, and they're trying to help us develop spiritually. And according to Belfast Thunder, at this moment in time, the human race is about to break into a big spiritual realm, and the reptilians don't want us to do that, because if we do that, we have power over the reptilians, and the reptilians don't have anything psychic or anything, a belief system. They're just, for much of a better word, like the Borg on Star Trek. They have no emotions, no feelings. They just want fear off you, feed from it.
That's quite an apt description of them, actually, Frank. That's quite apt. Yeah, the Borg. Yes.
Yeah.
It would seem that they are.
Are they all part? Is this all part then of the New World Order idea?
Yeah.
You would say.
Oh, I would agree with Frank on that. Yes, absolutely. It's control. It's always been, isn't it? Being control. They're now talking about cybernetics. This must be stopped. They've given it a fanciful name of, is it transhumanism or something?
Yeah.
I think there's a paper from the MOD. If it's to be believed it's from them, it wouldn't surprise me, about what they plan in 2050 is to begin this procedure of plugging us all in, or whoever they can plug in, the newborns. But this must be this is control. Yeah. Always. And the one thing that was interesting about this paper, now I haven't read it all, but I read the interesting bits. I will read it because there's time yet. But they always use medical advantages. Yeah. That is the linchpin they go for to actually try and sanction such a blasted horror. This must be stopped. And I don't care what they do. I mean, I always liken the government to a legitimized mafia. They seem to do exactly as they please. I mean, and we're not going to go into politics on here, I know that, but this is an example of the horrors awaiting the future. And it doesn't look very good for the sake of our children. We must stop this.
Yeah.
It's interesting you say that, because if anything is invented, it can be patented. So if you've got something inside you, somebody has that patent, and they then own you.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Yes, actually, yes. So basically chipping us and having us wired up to some horrendous network. But this is, it's control. So why? It's always control. Always.
I keep going back to the farming scenario, that we're actually being farmed.
Yes.
You have a farmer, he has his cows and his sheep, he looks after them. But there comes a time where he's either going to have to sell them off to market or cull them, but somebody's got to eat them.
My gosh, that's quite frightening, isn't it? Quite worrying.
Now, do you remember the killing of Ollie Wells and Jessica Chapman, the two young girls?
No, I don't.
They had football shirts on, and they went missing, and Ian Huntley said he admitted to it, and he was sent down to prison for murdering the two. David Starbuck, who was an independent journalist, he started investigating it. Unfortunately, David died 2 years ago. But he started investigating it, and in his investigations, he came across Dean Warwick, who's also dead. But Dean Warwick said that Ollie Wells and Jessica Chapman were kidnapped by US Air Force personnel and fed to reptilians, and all the flesh off their back was missing. He tried to cover it up by burning the bodies, but why remove the flesh, then put the football jerseys on and set fire to them, other than to try and hide the fact? And loads of people, the 3 nights before the bodies were found, heard screams coming from the woods where they were found. So
it's terrific.
And in the words of Dean Warwick, he said, in those days they ate the flesh of children. And that was referring to the reptilians, or the Nephilim. So are the Nephilim reptilian? I don't know. But certainly when you start looking at Mesopotamian devils like Pazuzu, he was famous on The Exorcist the four-winged devil that appeared. That's Pazuzu. When you look at him, he looks reptilian.
Yeah.
Yes, that's
He really does.
very good. And as Frank said, yes, that would make sense. They eat them as like a victory feast, because there were people here who drank from the skulls of their enemies, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's true. It complies with exactly what we do as well. You know, it wouldn't surprise me at all. That's quite shocking.
Yeah.
Oh, it is. It really is.
Mm.
Horrific.
Now, since
go
I
on.
started speaking out about reptilians, quite a lot of people have come to me. I mean, all three of us, you know, we dabble in the psychic side, but because we do, you get people coming talking to us who won't even talk to their own families for fear of ridicule.
Yeah.
And it's the same with the reptilian scenario. Now, I've met two ex-paratroopers who went up to an island off the west coast of Scotland, and both of them came out with the same story, that there's an underground base there with reptilians. Neither of them knew each other. One of them is still alive down south. The other one, he committed suicide or he was murdered. He rang me up. Well, it was 10 years ago at Truth Juice. His mother came up to me, spoke to me about him, saying he's been followed, he's been chased by reptilians ever since he left the Paras, and it's from this island. So I said, get in touch with me, you know, I'll try and help him. A few years went down the line, nothing, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, 3 o'clock one night, he rings me. He said, I need your help. The reptilians are outside my flat. And I said, where are you? He said, Carnarvon in North Wales. Well, I said, it's like 2-3 hour journey for me. I can't get there tonight. But he said, well, thank you anyway, but they are outside, they're trying to get in. Anyway, a couple of days later, his mother rang me to say that night he committed suicide. He was left-handed, but he slit his throat with his right hand. And I don't know. So whether he was actually psychotic or had mental health problems, I very much doubt it. The way he was speaking to me sounded very rational.
Yes.
Now, I was a social worker in mental health, so I do recognise, you know, mental health illnesses or the onsets of them.
Yeah.
And he didn't strike me. He struck me as very rational, but the fear in him was very real.
The soldiers, this is the account, as Frank has just said, they also target soldiers. That's right, because I didn't know of that, but the case I had was from Christopher Turner. I learned of a case of one of these reptilians infiltrating the barracks. I think it was in Germany, if I remember correctly, and it was camouflaged to a degree until the light struck it from the window. One of the troopers saw him in the room, but he was wearing belts that looked like bullets. But these, he reckoned, camouflaged. It was climbing around the room, and he saw it. So that's it. That's in a nutshell. But if they can infiltrate bases, they can infiltrate anywhere.
Of course.
You know, yeah. And he, of course, like Frank's friend, you can't go to your CO because he considered doing this, the one posted in Germany in the barracks, to tell him afterwards, because then you're considered nuts or they're unstable. These are soldiers, trained soldiers. So they have to be very careful, but he kept it quiet for years. So as Frank suggested, his friend, I can well believe it.
Do you know, I wrote an uncompleted story about an underground base off the coast of Scotland, which was used as a prison for psychiatric patients.
I wonder if it's the same place.
Yeah, I wonder. And the patients had to go underground, but there were creatures under the ground with them.
Yeah.
But I hadn't gotten to what these creatures were. I hadn't gotten to that. But I think sometimes these things are in our psyche. from whenever.
Yeah, you pick it up. I mean, Philip and I wrote a science fiction book years ago, 2010, about an underground base with reptilians. It was called The Ungodly Agenda. Now, that was science fiction, and I don't think I was heavily into this. Not then, not really. We had dabbled a bit, but it really took off after that. But they were reptilians, and we had responses from people saying, do you know, well, I wouldn't have known then, that you're so close to the mark, that they do have, as you said, possibly, I mean, I wouldn't know, but underground bases with these creatures. So it makes you think whether, as you just said, like Frank and yourself, I wouldn't consider myself to be a psychic. I couldn't raise the skin of a rice pudding, but I do have sometimes little flashes of things. I won't go into detail, but could it have been like that? You're used unwittingly as a puppet to try and get the truth, out, but albeit in fiction.
Yeah.
Who knows? You know, I don't know.
Yeah. You mentioned the Nephilim as well. I was reading about the Nephilim and the Watchers and the Shining Ones, the Egregores. I don't really know much about any of these terms. I don't know if either of you have come across any of these terms.
Certainly the Nephilim. You know, it actually says in the Bible about the Nephilim.
Yes.
Or the men of old, or the men of renown.
Right.
And certainly it goes with Sitchin's translation of the Sumerian text, where the gods came down from the heavens and interbred with human women,
Yes. I've heard of
which
that.
is in the Bible with the Nephilim. You know, what we are today is essentially a Nephilim hybrid. You know, if you believe what is in the Bible.
Well, it's like the missing link, isn't it? It's the missing link.
So what they're saying
This brings
is
that into question, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Were we genetically or modified by, you know, intervention with them? You know what I mean by that? Whether in a test tube or whether they mated.
Research I've done is, if you speak in evolution terms, just one genome will change over so many years within the human genome. Around 12,000 years ago, there were 34 changes in the human genome, which it doesn't happen in nature.
Yeah.
There was some intervention.
Yeah.
By who, by what, I don't know.
There's one doctor who came up with the theory of the reptilian brain, that the inner part of the brain is shaped exactly like that of a lizard's brain. It's sometimes called the lizard brain, and so it could well be that we share some genes with reptiles, and therefore we are them. Are we them?
I think so. I think we're a hybrid.
A hybrid of some kind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the dinosaurs. Sorry to interrupt.
No, go on.
As just Frank said, and yourself, it's quite possible. I mean, we don't know, but it's quite possible because the dinosaurs were here before us, weren't they? So, do we have any genus to them? Any kind? I would think there would be something. You know, it seems to be that they might have been not themselves physically, but what's the word I'm trying to find? The overall of them is quite common here. The reptilian. There's something in us that we shared from it. Something that was preserved, or something that is commonplace with the ones that perhaps are the overlords, as we call them. You know, I'm not saying the dinosaurs themselves. It's just strange, isn't it? How, you know, they were in existence as well, to be wiped out and then given rise to us, and so forth and so forth.
Right. I mean, evolution teaches us that we came from the water, and then we became lizards, and then we grew up into something else. Now, what do you're smiling there, Ronnie? What do you think of that? You're not for it.
I haven't got a clue.
You don't know.
No, I'm going to play safe. I haven't got a clue. I actually haven't thought much about our evolution, because let's be honest, no one knows. So, you know, but
Oh, it's all very, very interesting stuff.
I personally think humankind came from somewhere else by panspermia, which is like, say, a comet or a meteorite bringing particles. When it hits the Earth's atmosphere, these particles are coming in. Now, some scientists believe that's how some illnesses or viruses hit us. Certainly the Spanish flu, what broke out 100 years ago, apparently it broke out in Bombay and Boston on the same day, which is impossible.
That is.
That is really, really weird.
So
very weird.
Did mankind come that way? And we just evolved.
Yeah.
But we evolved at a phenomenal rate compared to the rest of the animal world.
Yeah, yeah. It would certainly seem so. Are the royals reptilians? What do you think?
What, sorry?
The royals, the queen, is she a reptile?
Yeah, it's interesting that.
I wouldn't know.
Possibly, because the bloodlines, they certainly go back to Dracula, because Prince Charles is proud of that fact that he's related to Dracula. So
I didn't know that he was.
It's possible. But Credo Mutter, he's a Zulu shaman. He said to me personally, he said, have you noticed every time the Queen Mother goes to Balmoral, Nessie's sighted?
I had not noticed that.
Well, I laughed at it at first, and I started researching a bit, and yeah, it's every time she was up at Balmoral, Nessie was sighted. And I thought, nah, it's a hell of a coincidence, that. But who knows?
So we're saying that the Queen Mother was Nessie.
Well, she was known as the Grand Toad.
Was she?
Yeah.
That's not very complimentary, is it?
No, it's not. But a toad is a reptilian.
Yeah.
Goodness.
I actually don't know. I mean, I haven't really gone into that aspect, but I certainly do, and it's not shying away from things, because the trouble with this subject is so broad.
Yeah.
There are so many different aspects to it. You know, you can go on, but I'm certainly definitely sure they are absolutely reality. I believe they are here. They are working as controllers. They're puppeteering the government. I believe that. And, you know, it's funny, when even saying it, you feel ridiculous, but then you don't, because you think, well, we don't know anything. They've lied to us as well. The government's lied to people.
Yeah.
They're trying to change history. I believe that if they had a chance, they'd wipe out Adolf Hitler. We need to keep him to remember the vile mistakes of powers, corrupt powers, that it was, and he was allegedly involved with the supernatural.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You see, again, we go back to the cults,
Yeah.
to the worshipping of demons and dabbling with things, as my grandfather said, that you bloody well don't dabble with.
Well,
Yeah.
here's one. In Preston, where I live, there's a church there, St. Leonard's, and I don't know if you've seen it. There's a famous woodcut, and it's turned into a painting now, of John Dee and Edward Kelly performing necromancy, and they raise this spirit. Well, it's in this church in Preston, in the church grounds where it happened.
Queen Elizabeth's.
Yeah,
Yes.
Queen Elizabeth.
The first, yes.
She employed them both, but they were also responsible for forming MI5 or MI6. And if you look at the symbolism on that, you'll see I had a triangle. And everything Queen Elizabeth did was based on what John Dee and Edward Kelly said. They wrote stars, they wrote charts. They were well into the occult.
Yes.
So was Queen Elizabeth a reptilian? Who knows?
Well,
But
yes, that's right. Frank is correct. John Dee also, they using mirror gazing or something to,
yes,
they were that's it, that's the word. Yeah. Absolutely factual.
Mirror gazing to what?
scrying, mirror
Oh, just
gazing,
scrying.
summoning the spirits.
Mhm.
Wasn't that right, Frank? Something to do with that?
Yeah.
And there was disgrace at the end because they did something that was disgraceful. But this was demonic energy coming through.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
This was demonic energy. And if anyone wishes to do the research on it, Frank is absolutely right. You just have to type in John Dee on YouTube and you'll find out all about him, especially the dark arts. That's right. They were also involved with the serpents as well. There's symbols of the serpents with the Queen Elizabeth I, the serpents. I think they tried to paint it out, didn't they? Of her holding a serpent. They tried to paint it out of her hand or somewhere on her. Oh, yeah.
Oh, I don't know if you ever did at school. You write each letter A, B, C, like 1, 2, 3, etc. And then if you total up the word Hitler, it comes to 666.
No, I didn't know that. Do you know, I actually did not know that.
I know, it's spooky, isn't it?
About him is tainted in demonism.
I did numerology on Bill Gates a couple of months ago, and Bill Gates comes to 6.
That wouldn't surprise me at all. That wouldn't surprise me at all. Yes, it's not, from what I've heard of him, yes, he's questionable, very questionable. Absolutely. Yeah. But I didn't know that about Hitler. No, I didn't know.
It's really, just when you mentioned Hitler there, I thought, then the 666 thing.
I lived in Germany for 9 months, and I went to quite a few of the Nazi sites, but Castle Weibelstein, where Himmler had his SS headquarters, what a very dark place, very dark energy. Mm-hmm. But they were definitely using demonic energy with the Nazis. Yeah. And to feed the reptilians, what better than a concentration camp?
Mm. Well, I tell you, I played on YouTube. It was like a drone going over Auschwitz. And I felt the evil coming from it. And I said, there's something really, I mean, I know that we think of the Nazis as being evil and what they did was evil, but I really felt the power of that evil just watching it. I mean, I probably won't, much as I would like to go and visit it, it's probably not going to be achievable because of my disabilities, but I just doing that, I sensed what had been there. The impression was still left, and it was just, it penetrated everything.
Yeah. That's how I felt when I went to Dachau.
Yeah.
Which is just outside Munich.
Yeah.
It was horrendous.
Yeah.
You know, for like any empath to go there, you are going to go away totally drained and depressed.
Yeah, I imagine. Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, with my past, I can grasp what humans do to each other, but the concentration camps were one step beyond.
Yeah.
You know what humans do. I mean, in Rinnichen, where I lived in South Africa, it's where the Boer War was. The surrender was taken and signed, but there was a big concentration camp there, what the British set up for the Boer women and children. And some of the old people I used to talk to as a kid were actually kids in that concentration camp, and they were horrendous. You know, thousands were dying of cholera and starvation. And you can't grasp how a human being can do that to somebody else.
No.
But they do. And they do it in a state of stupor. You know, like the Nazis at Nuremberg, they were just saying, oh, well, we were following orders.
Yes.
Which was no excuse, you know, under the Nuremberg rulings. But if you look around society today, how easily people are being led.
Yeah.
And
well, we've always been that way. I mean,
that's it.
The
you know,
psychological test that was done with people pressing, they weren't really pressing the button to electrocute someone at
Yeah.
a higher and higher voltage,
Yeah.
as they thought, but they
Yeah.
weren't. And it was, they said, well, it was because this sort of guy in charge, he was wearing a white coat and he seemed to be in charge,
Yeah.
and I had to follow their orders.
Yeah.
We seem to have it in
Yeah.
our head to follow somebody, people in uniform, people in
Yeah.
charge. We have to follow their orders.
And you only need one person to give that order.
Yeah.
Yes,
So now, if that one person is a reptilian, bingo.
Oh, yes, that's right, because they wouldn't be broadcast as that, but the people serving them would honour them. Frank's right, absolutely. They'd do anything. They'd kill you with a smile, I should imagine.
Yeah.
There's something else interesting. We're talking about, because I kept thinking about symbolisms like the 666, or the Titanic, or the Terror. I might be wrong, but I thought about it. I kept thinking, is it the words are rather like, or the symbols denote power themselves unwittingly? Why didn't they name the ship the Terror? And then I found out later on that happened to the crew, or allegedly happened to the crew. They were slaughtered, their heads were taken off. And the Titanic was named after a Titan, one of the Greek Titans. It sank.
Mm-hmm.
It's not all the cases, but Devil's Island. Is it the name? Is this what we would call magic?
Yeah.
Is it? I mean, I don't know. It's only an observation. The 666, we associate it with the devil, but is it a power? Are these numbers and words power? Somehow composed, you sort of mean, that can be used or utilised?
I think we have to be very careful of what we actually write down and create ourselves, because it draws in other things. And Ian's always warning me about that, to be careful, because I like horror, and he doesn't, and he's always saying you should be careful what you watch. And sometimes it really gets to him because he's much more psychic, much more open. He's got more years of experience than me. And he really can sometimes be quite affected by what, if I'm watching something that's maybe a horror or whatever. And doesn't mean I'm going to stop watching horrors, but it's certainly something to think about.
Oh, definitely, because like I said before, you form a word, you're actually spelling.
Mm-hmm.
The spelling is magic. Yeah. So if you form a word, you're putting power or empowering that word.
Yeah.
Well, it would absolutely, because it would seem so. Because as you said yourself, Frank, the emblems, the symbolisms of
the whole magic thing connected with it. Mm-hmm. The government, or certainly the judiciary, uses it against us, because the first thing they do when they ask you to go to court is they summons you. So if you form a black magic, you summons in an entity. Mm-hmm. So the summons in our entities, because we're masters of our own vessel, but we just need an ID. So the summoning in your identity. And who's summoning them? But the magi straits.
Oh my God. I never thought of that. That's amazing. It's very clever. You see, that's why we need people like Frank. People are amazing. They are wonderful because they're nuggets of knowledge, and they are the part of this wonderful picture that we're trying to solve. I mean, it's a mess at the moment. The whole thing, let's be honest, the whole paranormal thing is a mess. It's all over the place. But people like Frank, it's amazing what you learn, and yourself as well, bless you, that you try and learn these. I wouldn't have known that. You see, people would laugh it off, but it's actually, you're absolutely correct. Magic.
Wow.
Magic straight stuff.
I realised this when I got into. I never was a Freeman and a land member, but I was interested in what they were doing, and it was virtually my first aspect of learning law. And the more I learned in law, the more I realised it's pure magic. Mm. It has its own language called legalese. Mm-hmm. you know, and it's all about conning you. You know, I mean, for most of us,
But it works.
for most of us, the first thing, you know, you might get pulled over by a policeman for speeding or for a traffic offence or whatever.
Yeah.
Then they read out what they said, and they say you're right to remain silent, blah, blah, blah. And then they go, do you understand? And everybody goes, oh, yeah. Well, you've just given them authority to stand over you. Understand?
Oh, good Lord.
And that's where they've conned you into the first part of it. And, you know, a good lawyer is not somebody who's wise, it's somebody who just knows how the system works.
Yes.
And I have done it myself. Like the last time I went to court, which is interesting with the reptilian bit, because I went, the court bailiff came to arrest me because I didn't pay the fine. And I knew enough about the law not to pay the fine. So, of course, he comes to arrest me. I'm civil. Yeah, let's go. He's like, well, I've come to arrest you. No, I'm coming with you. I'm volunteering. You've come to pick me up. I'll go with you. So on the way down to the magistrate's courts, he kind of like took a bit of a liking to me. We had a bit of a chit chat, and we had a mutual friend. So he says to me, by rights, I should put you in the cells down below, but I'm not doing anything for the rest of the afternoon. So I'll sit with you till we go into court. And I'm like, yeah, fine. So we had a bit of a more chat, and then my name got called to go into court. So I says to him, come in with me. He went, why? I said, you learn something. So we both walks in, and we both went and sat in the galley. He's saying, you're supposed to go to the dock. I went, just shut up, stay silent. So the three magistrates come in, the court ushers all stand. She's staring at me, and she's like this. And I'm just sat there, you know. So the charge was read out of non-payment of fine, and is Mr. Willis in the court? And I'm like, yeah, I'm here. He says, can you come and stand in the dock? I went, no, I'm happy at sea. Court usher just looked, whispered something to the three magistrates, and they deserted the court. At which point I said to the court, taking the minutes, I said, they deserted the court, case dismissed, and I walked out. That was it. The court usher, the court bailiff, he come out, he said, what's just happened there? I said, I'm happy at sea. If I go into the dock, they're going to unload the goods. I need a license to dock. I'm not giving them that authority.
No, that's right. You haven't sanctioned. You're not.
I'd rather stay at sea because it's maritime law. Now, when I did that, I'm like thinking, do reptilians go to sea? Is this part of their play to like try and con us to extort money or to extort goods out of us? Because the whole thing comes from the City of London, where the ships come from the North Sea and they come down the canal or the River Thames to berth, the berthing canal, and they pull over, and the dockers or the bankers on the bank unload the goods. And the value is determined by the current or the currency. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that's maritime law, and it comes from the City of London. The City of London, when you enter it, is guarded by dragons.
Yes.
Oh.
God.
Yeah.
Good Lord. Well, do you know what? That's quite amazing, isn't it? I actually didn't know that. No.
That is really, really interesting. And if I'm ever in court, I will remain at sea and see what happens.
Yeah.
We're quite a bit over time. We're about 20, but it's been such a fascinating conversation. I'm not really bothered how long over time we go. That's absolutely fine. Is there any more novels or artwork in the offing from you, Ronnie, in the future?
Do you know? I don't know. It's funny when I write. It's a spur of the moment. and other times I won't do anything. And I've got no enthusiasm at the moment, so I've just learned to just wait.
Wait.
I just have to wait.
Yeah.
I'm like that with my artwork.
Yeah. It may look like that's right. It may look like there's a lot of it, but I'm like a person who will just burst, and then it stops. Burst, and then it stops.
I'm the same. Yeah.
That's great. Do you know that's how it works? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it has been wonderful and fascinating talking to you both, but unfortunately we're at the end of a very fascinating and visual show, and I'd like to thank you both, Frank and Ronnie, for being my guests, for talking to me today about the elusive and controversial subject of the reptilian phenomenon. And next week I'm going to be talking with Lakshmi Mohan Babu, I hope I said that right, and she's in Singapore. So join me then for another fascinating ADX Files TV special. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
I'll just stop the recording there.